Paternity test for your 23-year-old daughter sleeping with another man during the time Artisha was conceived. Mr. Harrison is your daughter's biological father. And Miss Connolly only had sex one time, caught her with another man.
Well, Judge, it's a horrible feeling. I really wish this feeling on no other young woman in the world. Friends, I've only kept about 2 or 3 friends. People didn't like me, and I didn't have to deal with the reality of my own father. And well, not in jail, dead, not in another state. He's in the same state, and he's taking care of other kids. He's taking care of other kids that are not even his.
I had my doubt down through the years. I should have and could have done a better job, but I didn't. One daughter was born, and at the time, she said, well, that's not your child. Well, I know it wasn't proven. She said it wasn't mine, so I took her word for it.
The courtroom feels heavy as everyone takes their seats. A mother, Brenda Connolly, stands forward carrying years of guilt, confusion, and unanswered questions. She is not here for herself alone. She is here because her daughter, Artisha Connolly, has lived her entire life without knowing the truth about who her father really is. Artisha is now 23 years old, an adult, but inside her still lives a child who grew up feeling abandoned. Brenda explains that during the time Artisha was conceived, she was involved with more than one man. One of them was her husband at the time, Lyndon Harrison. For more than 2 decades, this uncertainty has followed them like a shadow. Lyndon has always doubted whether Artisha was truly his biological child, and because of that doubt, he stayed distant, emotionally and physically absent from her life. Artisha finally speaks, and when she does, her pain fills the room. She explains what it felt like growing up without a father. She says it is a loneliness she would never wish on anyone. While other children had fathers showing up for birthdays, school events, and guidance, she had silence. She kept only a few friends because she felt different, unwanted, as if something about her made people leave. What hurt the most was knowing her father was alive, healthy, living in the same state, yet choosing not to be part of her life. He was not gone because of death or prison. He was simply absent. She describes the deep wound of watching him take care of other children while ignoring her existence. Children who were not even biologically his received the attention she longed for. That realization shaped her self-esteem and affected how she viewed relationships. All she wants now is the truth, no matter how painful it might be. When Lyndon is asked to explain himself, he admits that doubt followed him for years. He says that early in the relationship, Brenda became pregnant with a child she later told him was not his. He accepted that and continued the relationship. When Brenda became pregnant again with Artisha, he initially believed the child was his and tried to do the right thing. But slowly, the doubt returned, especially because Brenda was still involved with other men during that time. Brenda does not hide from her past. She openly admits that she was living a reckless life back then. She says she was partying, selling drugs, spending time on the streets, and being involved with multiple men. She explains that when Lyndon first met her, he seemed different from the others. He was more stable, more responsible, and for a while she believed she could build something real with him. They married and lived together, but their lifestyles clashed. He was church-going and structured. She was restless and impulsive. Brenda admits that she was unfaithful and that her actions created confusion that would later destroy her daughter's sense of identity. She even gave birth to Artisha while she was incarcerated. During that time, Artisha was raised by her grandparents, growing up without clarity about who her father was. Lyndon argues that if Brenda truly believed he was the father, she would have taken him to court years ago for child support. He believes that the fact she did not do so strengthened his doubt. Brenda responds by explaining that while she was in prison, the court attempted to locate Lyndon but could not find him. She insists she tried, but circumstances and chaos prevented resolution. Artisha then shares how she herself tried to find her father once she became older. She talks about seeing him only a handful of times throughout her entire life. The most significant encounter came when she was 18 and starting college. She hoped that adulthood would finally bring a relationship, but it didn't. The connection felt awkward, forced, and fragile. After that, he disappeared again. She describes spending 2 years going to the same streets, the same liquor store, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Eventually, she spotted him by chance at a bus stop. When she approached him and said she had been looking for him, he did not recognize her. That moment shattered her. Being unseen by the man who might be her father felt like being erased. Despite everything, Articia tries to understand where his doubt came from. But she also believes that doubt is not an excuse for abandonment. She says she could have handled the truth if it had been explained to her earlier. Instead, she was left to imagine her own story, and that story caused deep emotional damage. Brenda, listening to her daughter speak, breaks down. She admits that she herself learned later in life that the man she believed was her father was not biologically related to her either. She knows what it feels like to have your identity pulled away, and she regrets passing that pain down to her daughter. The judge reminds everyone that this case is not about blame anymore. It is about breaking cycles. Both parents admit they failed Articia. Lyndon apologizes publicly, saying that if Articia is his daughter, he asks God for forgiveness for the years he was absent. Brenda also accepts responsibility, admitting that her choices played a role in this painful situation. Articia explains how her father's inconsistency affected her adult relationships. She recalls times when she tried to reconnect with him, calling, texting, asking him to meet her. Each time, he made promises and failed to show up. Being ignored again and again reopened old wounds. Still, she stands in court hoping, because despite everything, she wants him to be her father. As the moment approaches for the DNA results, the room is silent. Articia says she simply wants to know who she is. Brenda hopes this will finally end the search. Lyndon says he wants the truth as well, whatever it may be. The results arrive, ending 23 years of uncertainty. The DNA test confirms that Lyndon Harrison is Articia Connelly's biological father. The courtroom erupts with emotion. Applause fills the space, but it is mixed with tears. Lyndon apologizes again, admitting that his doubt cost him precious years he can never get back. Articia cries, overwhelmed by relief and grief at the same time. Brenda reflects on her daughter's strength. Despite everything, Articia grew into a confident woman. She attended college, overcame her shyness, and even became a beauty queen. The judge speaks about hope, about leaving the courtroom better than they entered it. As the court adjourns, Articia says she plans to build a relationship with her father and focus on her future. Lyndon says he wants to introduce her to the rest of his family and make up for lost time, even though he knows nothing can fully erase the past. This moment does not magically heal all wounds, but it finally gives Articia what she has been searching for her entire life: the truth. The truth settles into the room slowly, like dust after a storm. Even after the words are spoken, no one moves right away. 23 years of doubt, silence, and unanswered questions cannot disappear in a single sentence. Articia sits there, breathing unevenly, trying to understand what this truth means for her life now. Knowing who her father is does not erase the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering why she was not enough. It does not remove the memories of birthdays without phone calls, graduations without applause, or the quiet shame of telling people she did not really know her dad. Lyndon looks at her differently now. For the first time, there is no uncertainty in his eyes. He is not guessing anymore. He is not hiding behind doubt. The reality stands in front of him, and with it comes a weight he cannot ignore. He says he is sorry again, but this time his voice carries something deeper. It is not just regret, it is mourning. Mourning the years he missed, the moments that can never be relived. Articia listens, but forgiveness does not rush in. She has waited her whole life for consistency, not apologies. She explains that knowing he is her father does not automatically heal the damage done. She talks about how abandonment shaped her identity, how she constantly questioned her worth, and how it affected the way she connected with people. She says she learned to expect disappointment, to prepare herself for people leaving, because that was all she had ever known. She explains that when she finally found him again as an adult, she believed things would be different. She hoped maturity would bring honesty and effort. Instead, she experienced the same pattern. Promises were made and broken. Meetings were planned and canceled. Phone calls went unanswered. Each time, it reopened a wound she thought had already scarred over. That hurt taught her to keep emotional distance, even from people she wanted to trust. Lyndon admits that fear played a role in his behavior. He was afraid of being hurt again, afraid of accepting responsibility, afraid of facing the consequences of years of absence. He says he convinced himself that staying distant was safer than risking disappointment. But hearing his daughter speak makes him realize that his silence caused more pain than the truth ever could have. Brenda listens quietly, absorbing every word. She knows much of this pain began with her choices. She explains that for years she lived with shame, believing she had failed her daughter before Articia even had the chance to grow up. She says she tried to rebuild her life, to become a better woman and a better mother. But some mistakes leave marks that never fully fade. She wishes she had demanded answers sooner, pushed harder, fought more aggressively for clarity. She admits that fear and chaos stopped her from doing what she should have done. The judge reminds them that responsibility is shared. No single person created this pain alone, and no single apology will fix it. Healing will require time, honesty, and consistent effort. Words spoken in court must be followed by actions outside of it. Articia says that despite everything, she wants to try. Not because it is easy, but because she does not want bitterness to define her future. She says she is tired of carrying anger that was never hers to begin with. She wants to know her father as a person, not as a ghost from her past. But she is clear about one thing: trust will not come automatically, it will have to be earned. Lyndon accepts this. He says he understands that he cannot step into her life as if nothing happened. He talks about introducing her to his other children and family members, not as a gesture of obligation, but as a step toward honesty. He admits that he kept her separate from his life because doubt allowed him to avoid accountability. Now that doubt is gone, so is his excuse. Articia feels a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because the question that haunted her since childhood finally has an answer. Sadness because knowing the truth also confirms that many years were lost unnecessarily. She realizes that clarity does not always bring peace immediately. Sometimes it brings grief for what could have been. She talks about how she learned to survive without a father figure, how she pushed herself academically, socially, and emotionally to prove she was worthy of love and attention. She became strong because she had to, not because she wanted to. She says she is proud of herself, but she wishes strength had been a choice, not a requirement. Brenda expresses pride in her daughter, calling her resilient and courageous. She talks about watching Articia grow from a shy, withdrawn child into a confident young woman who learned to stand on her own. She acknowledges that her daughter succeeded despite the instability around her, not because of it. That realization brings both pride and guilt. The judge speaks again, emphasizing that closure is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of accountability. She urges Lyndon to follow through on his promises and reminds Brenda that self-forgiveness is also part of healing. Carrying shame forever helps no one. As the court session draws to a close, Articia reflects on what she wants moving forward. She says she plans to focus on her career, her creativity, and building relationships rooted in honesty. She hopes that this new chapter will allow her to redefine what family means to her, not based on absence, but on effort. Lyndon says he wants to be present, even if it means starting slowly. He acknowledges that he cannot erase the past, but he believes he can still show up for the future. He promises to communicate, to listen, and to respect boundaries. Whether those promises will hold remains to be seen, but for the first time, they are grounded in truth. As they leave the courtroom, nothing feels magically resolved. The pain is still there, but it is no longer mixed with uncertainty. Articia walks away knowing where she comes from. That knowledge does not change her past, but it gives her control over her future. Sometimes healing does not come as relief. Sometimes it comes as clarity. And for Articia, clarity is something she has waited her entire life to finally hold. Outside the courtroom, the noise fades, but the emotions stay close. Articia feels lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because the question that shaped her childhood finally has an answer. Heavier because the truth forces her to face everything that never happened. There were years when she imagined what life might be like if her father showed up, if he asked about her day, if he defended her, if he claimed her without hesitation. Now she knows that those years were lost not because of fate, but because of fear, doubt, and silence. She thinks about the little girl she once was, standing at windows, listening for footsteps that never came. She remembers asking her mother questions that had no clear answers. Each vague response planted confusion inside her, and that confusion slowly turned into self-blame. She grew up wondering if she had done something wrong, if she was unlovable, if she somehow deserved to be forgotten. Knowing the truth does not erase those thoughts instantly, but it finally tells her that the absence was never her fault. Lyndon walks beside her, unsure of where he fits now. Being proven her father does not automatically make him feel like one. It feels more like standing at the door of a life he should have entered decades ago. He realizes that biology was never the real question. The real question was courage. Courage to face uncertainty, courage to ask for truth, courage to stay even when things were complicated. He avoided all of that, and now he has to live with what avoidance cost him. He wants to speak, to explain himself further, but he understands that words have limited value at this point. Articia has heard promises before. What she needs now is consistency. She needs time to see whether he will still be there when the court cameras are gone and no one is watching. Brenda watches them both, feeling the weight of her role in this story. For years, she carried shame quietly, convincing herself that surviving was enough. But watching her daughter face her father makes her realize that survival is not the same as healing. She wishes she had protected Articia with honesty earlier, even if the truth was painful. Silence, she now understands, can be just as damaging as cruelty. Later, when they speak privately, Articia tells her mother that she does not blame her alone. She says blame has lived in her heart for too long, and she does not want it there anymore. She wants accountability, not resentment. Brenda cries when she hears this, not because she feels forgiven, but because she sees the emotional maturity her daughter developed in the absence of stability. It is both beautiful and heartbreaking. Articia reflects on how this experience shaped her understanding of love. She learned early that affection could be inconsistent and unreliable. That lesson followed her into adulthood, making her cautious and guarded. She often expected people to leave, so she pulled away first. She recognizes now that this pattern was born from abandonment, not instinct. Knowing that gives her power to change it. She decides that moving forward, she will no longer define herself by who stayed away. She will define herself by who she chooses to become. The truth gives her a foundation she never had before. It does not promise happiness, but it offers direction. Lyndon begins to understand that being a father now means listening more than speaking. It means showing up without being asked. It means respecting the boundaries Articia sets and accepting that trust will grow slowly, if at all. He knows he cannot demand forgiveness. He can only earn understanding through action. He tells her that he wants to introduce her to his family when she is ready, not as a way to fix the past, but to acknowledge her place in the present. Articia does not respond immediately. She needs time to process what belonging even means to her. Family, to her, has always been something fragile, something uncertain. She is not ready to step into that world yet, but she appreciates the offer. As days pass, the emotional intensity does not disappear, but it changes shape. The anger softens into sadness, the sadness into reflection. Articia allows herself to grieve the childhood she did not have. She realizes that grief is not weakness, it is recognition. It is honoring what was lost instead of pretending it never mattered. She also begins to feel proud of herself. Despite everything, she survived. She built confidence from fragments. She learned to stand alone. Those skills will stay with her, even as she allows room for others now. The truth does not undo her strength, it explains it. Brenda commits to continuing her own healing. She understands now that being a better person is not only about changing behavior, but also about facing consequences honestly. She wants to support her daughter without controlling the outcome, without pushing reconciliation before it is ready. For the first time, she allows herself to believe that healing can happen without perfection. Lyndon starts reaching out consistently, short messages, simple check-ins, no excuses, no pressure. Articia notices the difference. She does not celebrate it yet, but she acknowledges it. Trust, she knows, is built through repetition. One message does not erase years of absence, but it can begin a pattern. She continues focusing on her future, her education, her career, her creative goals. She refuses to let this revelation derail the life she worked hard to build. Instead, she lets it inform her choices. She chooses honesty. She chooses boundaries. She chooses self-respect. Sometimes, late at night, she still feels the ache. Healing is not linear. Some days the truth feels empowering. Other days it feels overwhelming. But even on the hardest days, she reminds herself that uncertainty is no longer controlling her life. She knows who she is and where she comes from. That knowledge grounds her. This story does not end with perfect reconciliation or instant forgiveness. It ends with awareness, with responsibility finally being acknowledged, with a daughter no longer questioning her worth, with a father facing the consequences of his silence, with a mother owning her past and choosing to be present in a different way. Closure does not mean forgetting. It means understanding. And understanding, for Articia, is the first step toward a future no longer shaped by unanswered questions.